As loud as it can go. Welcome back, Artist Journal, November 28th, 2025. Broadcasting from Taormina, Sicily, looking off into the deep blue, the wine dark sea, as Homer called it. My name's Adrian Pocobelli, with a wonderful work. What a piece. You know, I remember, I'm thinking of the Kurt Hustle Collective when I say that. But I remember watching a YouTube video of Larry Gagosian talking about Jean-Michel Basquiat, as he calls him, to bring up old debates on how to pronounce Basquiat or Basquiat. I go with the American pronunciation, just because he was American. All to say, there was this great video where he was discussing how young, I believe, was he 27, 26 when Basquiat passed? And he was saying how, you know, he had this turbocharged career where as it got near the end, it was almost like condensed into these years where he started to get more minimal, where the work started getting more minimal near the end, which he was saying is something you often see in a lot of artists' careers, but near the end of their career, when they're in their 50s and 60s, where it starts to get pared down, boiled to its essence, so to speak. And that's what this work here evokes. These are the thoughts that evokes with me here, this incredible work by Sophie Ogor. Let me see, that's pretty good, isn't it? In terms of magnification. So here it's an interactive work, but it's wonderfully minimal, isn't it? I just picked this up on secondary. I felt lucky to get it for 25 Tezos, which is only $12 in Tezos land, with the bearish crypto vibes out there. So all to say, now this is interactive. Interesting work with the eye over here. A lot of details. And again, the negative space. I think it's the negative space that really does it for me here. And it's kind of wonderfully, you see it in the hood here. You see it in just like this kind of borderless, where the black fades into the black of the screen. And it contrasts here with a little bit of whatever these are, maybe bricks, maybe something else. And then here you have a little bit of kind of digital texture, whatever you want to call it. And whatever is even going on here. Is that a pill? Not even sure. I guess we'll see the title. But we will see in a second. First, since it's all loaded up here, it is a GIF, very minimal in its execution, in the color, just a slight color change and a little bit of kind of shine, you might say, on those bricks or whatever they are in the background. This is interactive, of course, as we see. So I will click it, and it's even more minimal. And I believe these are HTML, if I remember right, Sophie Ogor on Tezos. And so here, a more minimal version, and then if we click again, we get almost like a bit of a psychedelic, kaleidoscopic pattern, masked, so to speak. And then over here, fabulously, we almost get a kind of drawing, almost looking like a Leonardo notebook kind of texture, almost evoking that. And then we hit it again, and I think we are back where we started. So pretty fabulous work here. It kind of brings up a lot of questions just finally on, as we see here, what did we have? 3, 4 different iterations. The GIF does give us a way of not having to choose, so to speak, on your iteration. Now, this is slightly different because it's interactive. I have to click on this image to get the different iteration. But in a sense, theoretically, like as we see here with the flashing color, there's also with the GIF, you can have different iterations of the work or different frames with different versions. There's different ways of doing this. But all to say, one of the dilemmas of the digital artist, I would argue, is there's about 1 billion different ways, iterations, mixes, so to speak, that you can execute in an artwork. And so you can kind of solve for that somewhat by one way, if you want to do just one work, is to put all those works into one, so to speak, or you make it interactive like this. Let's see what it's called. And unsure, just some HTML or I guess some, I don't know what that is, but we see maybe a little happy face there, .html, 400 by 400 embedded GIFs. Click on the piece to switch between its 4 states. First GIF is chosen randomly. So if we were to reload this, maybe you get this one on the first take. So pretty cool. That random element, conceptually also super interesting. So cool work here by Zofia Gore to get us started here. Again, that elegance, that minimalism, the creativity, and yeah, so I believe we have 4 there. I love small works, so to speak. This is it on just by itself, opening the image, so to speak. So let's close that. And here's actually another work by Zophie, pump.rom. Let us see what's going on here. This also is interactive. So taking, of course, Zophie was in the pixel art horror show, and thrilled to put her there, and made a couple of works for that show. And so just a fabulous artist here, but again, kind of having a little bit of that kind of pixel art, horror, almost comic booky vibe. And, you know, was super interesting. I mentioned that game. There's a video game that seems to be the source, or one of the original primary documents, so to speak, of the pixel art horror genre that I mentioned in, I can't remember what it was called, but it's mentioned in the kind of exhibition statement, so to speak, on the Pocobelli Collection Object Gallery, where Zophie has some works. And yeah, so all to say, pixel art, can't remember what I was going to say there, but pixel art horror. I do remember. And it's a good one. So Zophie, after she saw the exhibition statement, was like, oh, that's really cool. Actually, you know, basically kind of almost confirming what I was kind of writing and saying, actually, the early screenshots of that game actually were on 4chan. You know, another link to 4chan. We're actually on 4chan, and so just so you know, here, and I think sent me a couple of screenshots. How interesting. So all to say, kind of part of that pixel art horror genre, so to speak, or echoes it. Interesting here, award-winning stuff. Indeed. Nothing like it. Kind of you know, the bread and butter of this program, so to speak, is just this stuff like this. Just thrilled to see work like this. So original, almost to the point of being Baroque. You know, like it's just has its own kind of mannerist. It's so unique. Like if Zofia Gore hadn't made this, as I like to say, nobody would have made this. It's like Bjork, right? Beating the dead horse. So maybe it even depends where. So as you see, an interesting poetry here, isn't it? An interesting internet poetry at work. Very, very interesting. And I think I'm drawing this hat. So this is Zophie on X. I'm drawing this hat on the next piece. So again, just a super talent here. Super interesting, original talent, taking a vision. There's a vision here that is being diligently explored. And again, the kind of work you'll find on Object and Tezos. Oftentimes, it's kind of the perfect petri dish, so to speak, of culture, of experimentation. You know, it's funny, the word experiment. I was reading William Burroughs' interview recently, and he was talking about the word experiment. Ballard didn't like the word experiment either. I think Burroughs said experiment seems to imply it's failure. It's already past failure, or it seems to suggest it's already a failure by calling it an experiment. So I do try and avoid the word. But there is something to be said for kind of this petri dish, so to speak, of places where it doesn't cost an arm and a leg, and just an open-minded art community. All to say, right-click save. So it's taken a few years, but right-click save is put me in their on their website. So big shout out and thank you. The Art of Good Taste, very kind, part of this Art on Tezos Berlin. The panel with Danielle King and Yanis Surdis. Of course, it was hosted by Fanny Lacube. So part of the 100 Collectors. So there we are in Berlin. So that was a lot of fun. And there's a bunch of people kind of standing along the wall and around us there. So really awesome. And they put the full interview there. Even put my work up. So, it's been a long time coming, but it happened. And so just thrilled to be there. Finally. Yes, and they asked me to put a couple of... I'd mentioned Haiti Rocket's work, and of course, one of my favorites here. Just classic. I was happy to put that in. 1900 Rad, S-H-I-T. And so, of course, and all sorts of artists here from people on the panel. And so there's everybody. So all to say, big thank you to Right Click Save, and check it out. I'm sure I retweeted that. And here, I thought I must have retweeted this. Have I not retweeted this? We will take a risk, and otherwise I will retweet it right now. How is that possible? I think I did retweet it, but as a quote retweet. That's what happened. Anyways, big thank you to Right Click Save. Thanks for the coverage. Awesome. And there we are. Those three things together: history, process, and style are the magic mix. So quoting me. So again, awesome. Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Right Click Save. Very cool. So let us post AI art. Exactly. Okay, let's look at the comments here. Jeff Faust, I don't watch all the Artist Journal. It's a lot of content. Well, maybe it's better now kind of weekly. Quick show note on that. I think I'm going to be weekly probably till June 1st. I kind of have a huge amount on my plate right now. But I want to keep the show going. So I show up here. But I think Friday mornings is basically the idea, or if I'm late, maybe a Saturday or Sunday. But basically, that's the idea. I don't watch all the Artist Journal. Maybe now it's easier. It's a lot of content, and I must focus on my work. Indeed. But I wanted to say that I appreciate your videos. I like your vibe, and I'm always learning some stuff. Today I learned about non finito. Cheers. Thank you. I appreciate that, and it's always good to hear. And I'm just so thrilled when people, especially, my kind of super exciting new viewer is someone who just randomly finds me on YouTube and goes, oh, this is interesting. I don't know if that was the case with Jeff Faust here, or Jeff Faust, but welcome and thank you. Oh, Microbe, I'm also happy I found this channel. Great videos. Yes, it is not only Tezos, and indeed, minting is so easy and cheap. It's also a totally different vibe in the space compared to a few years ago when I was introduced to NFTs. I think it was me who just did not find the right crowd back then. I think it was all of us. Or at least put it this way, I can relate. It was kind of a weird time, right? I mean, as most of us remember. It's too bad. It's kind of a tragic situation to a certain degree. Perhaps it was inevitable, considering it was just like a massive bubble. But it is kind of unfortunate in a sense that everybody, I think all my artist friends who wanted to be onboarded in 2021 and who now are just like, couldn't be bothered. Isn't that interesting? So, and who lost a bunch of money and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I hope it's a different vibe. In a sense, that's part of to a certain degree, part of the mission of this show. I'd say the mission of this show is really just to give my take, but my take is not going to be, hardcore. I speculate on a mental level. I do speculate financially, but not a ton. And I don't tend to do it on this show. So all to say, I'm glad you appreciate the show as well, Oh Microbe. Thank you for the comment. Rada Yonki, always on point, amazing. Thank you for the good vibes, my friend. It's been commenting for 400 shows here, so thank you, Rada. It's always great to hear from you. Big inspiration for many people in the community. Burnsy Witch, I think L'Inquisiteur. Great episode, Adrian. Some truly excellent artists are represented here. Stip and Pixel's opening piece is absolutely magnificent. I agree. His scenes of everyday life are always captivating and mesmerizing. Yeah, those street moments, I wish I had gone to, let's see if we can find some early, very quickly here. Stip and Pixel, those street moments, and if we go to collections, oh, they're on Hiket Nunk. Okay, so maybe I'll just put in SM, because I tell you, well, I don't know if that, yeah, so much for the search here. I don't know. So I'll just say, actually, we have a lot to go through. Check out Stip and Pixel's early works here. I'm kind of playing with fire here because the computer is not perfect. And so let's go quickly, though, since we are here and I brought it up. Some of my early pixel art that I was really excited to buy. So you see here, interestingly, black background, SM7. So these are early ones. And I assume the white background comes exactly. So then you get these wonderful, yeah, I remember these works, and they're nice slow editions too. These are fabulous. Stuff like this, just so original. Right? So all to say, I hear my computer fan going, so let's return to the comments here. I love Burka Bayram's work. Very often simply seeing his pieces awakens a kind of visceral ancestral feeling in me. As if it brings back, there is something to that, I agree. As if it brings back the bestial and shamanic part of my DNA. There is something about that, the distant remnants of the tribes that roamed the ancient, raw, and wild world. He's one of the few artists who can give me this feeling. Very interesting. Have a great weekend. Well, thanks for the good vibes out there, L'Inquisiteur, and I'm sure the artists appreciate that. Illusion T-Soul, I think it's an interesting perspective. I primarily mint my work for the proof of process. Except for perhaps one or two minor sales in the past 3 years, I continue creating. In a sense, when the bear market comes, I don't really feel it personally. Lovely show as always. Indeed, I embrace the bear market. It's like I like to say here, it's sometimes it's funner when it's not as crowded. So it's almost like, here's hoping. Thomas Blanchard, the Egyptian demon Amit, the devourer of souls condemned to extermination by a life of sin outweighing their goodness, was a lady with the head of a crocodile, the forelegs of a lion, and the hind legs of a hippopotamus. Interesting. So a little bit of Egyptology, courtesy of Thomas Blanchard. Thank you. Super interesting, of course, referring to Burka Bayram's work. And Udo XYZ, who actually just had this work. Someone posted, and thank you for the comment, Udo. And someone just posted one of Udo's pieces, didn't give him credit. And then it had like 350,000, or something, 500,000 views, I imagine by now. So anyways, big shout out, Udo. Great to have like such popular artists watching the show. Also on X, thank you for the support. There is Stip and Pixel's work, Post AI art, OXG +1 on the whole Post AI internet take. They virtually happened today. How can we possibly be past them? Exactly, and it's just a kind of interesting thing, right? Like I said before, it's sort of like if you're wrong semantically on the title of the genre, that you are self-titling. The pop artists never called themselves the pop artists. The Impressionists were called the Impressionists by some, I think, critic. They called themselves the Society of Anonymous Artists, I believe. And so again, it just kind of screams marketing term. And then if you're going to have a marketing term, I don't know why they do. Maybe that's the issue. Like maybe I've actually figured this out, perhaps, to speculate. Maybe AI art isn't kind of a marketing package enough. You can't say that you kind of own that. But if you say, oh, I'm post AI art, all of a sudden that's something you can market, and all of a sudden, oh, we're part of post AI art, and now everybody has to care. So maybe that's what's going on, and maybe that's what happened with post-internet. Maybe it's just a big kind of, it's almost like a hyper-real, thing where it's like the creating the term creates the reality. In a sense, that's what happened with post-internet. But it doesn't make it, but it's still kind of semantically wrong. So then it calls into question, you might say, the whole intellectual kind of presuppositions or assumptions underlying, or the girding that underlies that whole conceptual structure, I would argue. So it just makes you skeptical. You feel like you're being played intellectually. So I'm glad to hear that resonates with you, my friend. OXG, great to hear from you. Spam Age Corp, great review. All artists we like. Thanks for the spam shout out and the follow. Welcome to the spam zone. Consider yourself spammed again. It's not my first time, thank you, but it's always, I see Art Bell. That's what I see here, Pocobelli's Art Bell show. That's kind of what we're doing here, actually, hilariously. It just goes to show, this is the thing with randomness. It's kind of a lesson in randomness right here. It's like when you, as I always say, it's like when you play music on your stereo at home, and then you turn on the TV with the sound down and everything seems to work. Again, to quote William Burroughs, how random is random? Right? So here, Pocobelli's Art Bell show. Isn't that funny? What else? Pasta dinner. My mom would love this. Pocobelli's Art Spam. So wonderful. It's it's an honor being spammed here. So thank you, Spam Gauge Corp. Awesome. I lay cool episode. I view videos on regional Italian cuisine. Oh, well, you would love it here. Did you have brioche and granita? Actually, I have. And granita for breakfast, pistachio, everything. So Bambar, I am in Taormina, Sicily, which is probably one of the most beautiful places in Europe. As I look off, I wish you could see, unfortunately, maybe if it was cloudy, maybe you can see a slight horizon line right there, but you probably can't. So all the sea, looking off into the sea here. So the place to go, you can look it up, is Bambar. Actually, as I said here, I go there almost every night, actually, because I go to the gym here. I found a gym hilariously, wonderfully. You can just pay 60 euros for the month and you're good. You can use their gym. And right beside the gym in Taormina, this kind of very small but really beautiful town, you can get, Bambar is kind of world famous for their granita, which is, I believe, ice with limone, and it's kind of like gelato but different. And I actually got a brioche there with my mom. And what I'll do is I'll go to the gym, and then afterwards I'll go to Bambar and have my Perrier, or they don't have Perrier, but my Acqua Frizzante, my mineral water with lemon, with limone, and that is just living the good life over there. So we got a couple more weeks of that. So anyways, thank you, Ile. So yes, I've had the pistachio. There's pistachio everywhere. There's almost like pistachio stores at a Penne with kind of like a cream pistachio thing. That was delicious. Anyways, thank you, Ile. Great to hear from you. Thanks for the good vibes. David Lockhart, the Atari story is interesting. Indeed, isn't it? Old enough to be dust, but still in the conversation, still 1972. And there's these beautiful graphics. There's something really charming about these early video game graphics, which I think inspire a lot of the work. I mean, it's kind of got, when you look at it, and you consider the Zofio Gore work, it's not that far, visually speaking. You have kind of pixel art, you have this black and white, you have a little bit of interactivity, you have these... It's not, it's in the same universe, shall we say, visually speaking. Very cool. Thousand Lands, love Stip and Pixel. So this is awesome. Great to hear from you, Thousand. I think we have a work by you this show. Jean Millet, another great one. Thank you. Thank you for the good vibes, my friends. Hamid, thank you for your valuable support of artists in the Web3 space. You're welcome. I really appreciate, actually, there are people who are, appreciate the support, so to speak, of people in the Web3 space. again, I love how it's not too crowded. You know, like imagine if everybody was still involved like it was 2021. I'm not sure this show would at least exist in the same way. Saints RJ, excellent, thank you. Obscura, great to hear from you. Ed Woods, where are you based now? As you mentioned the views. So I'm in Sicily. I'm on my way to Paris in February, but we're gonna go I'm with my mom as I look off at the yacht, that massive yacht in the sea there. We don't see much traffic over here. What's the plan? Actually, I have to go to London this weekend for regular work stuff, and then we go to Berlin for a week. It's really exciting, actually. I feel very lucky. And then we go to Florence, and then I go back to Munich to visit my friends and stay there for a bit, and then off to Paris. So it's a busy... Paris is really the home base as of a few months from now. Tomba Battle, great to hear from you. Najma, I'm happy to be a small member of this great community. Well, you've been around, Najma, so great to hear from you. Vaxorus, I also noticed this street moment. Interesting pixel graphics. Yeah, check out the older ones as well as we were doing there. There's a lot of great work there. Small additions too. Andrea Balestrero, just read the art review piece. Actually, John Raffman's position seems to be the more intellectually honest. Contemporary art is a small circle where value is driven mainly by relationships. A very weak economic sector always trying to protect itself. So you are totally right. We'll see in the future what will be considered relevant. But don't be too upset for the improper post-whatever term use. Enjoy, yes. I'll try not to be too upset about it. Yes, but it is kind of like, my issue with it is, again, I feel like it's this faux intellectualization of, it's trying to sound smart. It's basically pretentious in a negative sense. So I'm kind of over it, and it's only made sense with postmodernism. And what kind of is the double injury is the fact that it's not even being used right, and it's the second time. It's like a triple injury. So first we had post-internet, now we have post-AI. It's just like, at what point do we just kind of say, give me a break, right? Thank you. Enjoy some granita con with panna, with some bread while you can. Indeed, I will, my friend. Thank you for the good vibes. Argona, good art legend. Thank you. Marvin, AI is becoming better and better. I wonder if that's an AI account. Thank you, Marvin. Hattie, excellent. Thank you. Okay. As we look at some of the comments, this is quite interesting. So Jamie Gurley from Verse, who I think runs Verse, thinking of starting a gallery or release platform, things just got easier. So, and I think I brought this up actually. So the Verse Tech Suite. So it looks like if you want to open your own digital gallery on your own website, you can get Verse. Basically, it's an embed. It's pretty cool. And that embed, I believe they take 6%, and then you can have all of these features on your own website. Ranked Dutch, so auctions, randomized, artist curated, collector curated, buy now, allow list, reserves, decreasing supply. How interesting. Sell however you like, artists own the contracts. So this is not just for galleries in a sense. You could also, as an artist, you could say, hey, maybe I want to just sell on my own website. How interesting. So I believe it's 6%. And it looks great. You can even take credit card. Wow. Apple Pay. So, and way more. So this is quite interesting. Let collectors mint later. So all of the developments that Verse has put into their platform, they're basically now sharing. Amazingly. So that is pretty impressive. So right on the heels of Tezos, Art on Tezos Berlin is Art on Tezos Buenos Aires. Big shout out to everybody at Neutro in Buenos Aires. So how cool does that look? So there's the Neutro. So I can just imagine. I almost wonder if I've been in this space last year. So very cool. And maybe some familiar faces over there as we look off into Buenos Aires and all of the wonderful people there. So look at that. So if I wasn't here, I'd probably try and be there. Pretty awesome, as you see. A lot of great people there. So wonderful at Art on Tezos Buenos Aires. So continuing around the world, Jedi Wolf. In real life, art exhibitions are cool, but limited by time, space, and the number of physical eyeballs. Digital online exhibitions blow those limits wide open. We just need someone to figure out how to do them right. It's quite interesting. I saw a post, I think it was Solo's Gallery, which is a verse thing, with Tyler Hobbs talking about how, or maybe it was in an interview, talking about the generative artist who was talking about how physical, nothing replaces physical, something like this. It just kind of hits different, and there is something to be said for that. Indeed, there is something to be said for that. So it's interesting. Digital online, it's just an interesting question as we just look there at Buenos Aires and the TVs and everything. It's quite interesting. I'm still kind of like, I think like when I think of Lily Illo, printing on wood, and that's also a solution. Making the digital physical. Is a fun thing to do. So interesting question. Mikol, been thinking about this a lot lately. Crypto art or digital art, however we want to call it, does not have to resemble contemporary or traditional art. Take more risks, be experimental, show what art and tech combined can create rather than shadowing past trends. Bring back some fun. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like sometimes you could argue that I think it's interesting, actually. Like when you think of the digital art scene and the aesthetic gravitational pull is towards a kind of modernist, you might say turn of the century, 20th century vibe. I think you could argue. Almost like early, 20th century, 1915, you're thinking of Cubism. You think also of the abstract expressionists, this sort of thing. There is a pull, an aesthetic gravitational pull towards that direction. So I think you should be experimental, but in order to be relevant, like in a sense, this, you could argue, is the criticism that the traditional art scene would have of, say, a lot of crypto art it's in a sense, there's an implied, I would argue, criticism that it's not traditional enough. And to a certain degree, I'd actually argue they're right. To a certain degree, in some cases. And so, put it this way. Contemporary, I'd actually say more art pre-1970, or even pre-1980s, when you look at Basquiat, they kind of knew what they were doing aesthetically. Like, they kind of earned their place. A lot of the works that we see and are celebrated, that was aesthetically earned, we might say. So for me, I don't know if it really makes sense to say, hey, that doesn't matter anymore, and then I'm going to do my thing that has nothing to do with that. There's this, I think to a certain degree, that's a good spirit because it's not following the trends and it's trying to do something new. But there's also hubris in that, in the sense that, maybe they kind of knew what they were doing over there. And maybe you kind of want to be informed or have your work informed by that. And previous centuries as well. So it's an interesting discussion. Take more risks, be experimental, show what art and tech combined can create rather than shadowing past trends. Bring back some fun. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Now we're going to see some work. I'm thinking of Canik Zapata. We're going to see some pretty wild, different looking work courtesy of Canik Zapata coming up. So you can keep that in mind, that comment, when you look at that. Luke 500, my entire feed is about the death of ordinals. I couldn't be happier or prouder that I set up my Bitcoin full node and collected many artworks there. And is that the node? How cool is that? So it's kind of funny. So sentiment in the ordinals space. I have zero regrets putting work on ordinals. Son of Lost G. Grave dancing is easier than re-engaging with nuance. The irony is the loudest. Ordinals are dead voices are skipping the only, I'm sure I follow Son of Lost G, are skipping the only phase that ever matters in an art movement, the period when attention redistributes from speculators to people who actually engage with the work. Dismissing the entire medium because the trash tier was loud is like judging all of DeFi by Yam and the wave of food farm clones that followed. And showing some examples here. But all to say, I noticed Sense is actually doing quite well. that CENTS, it's actually not doing bad at all. But some of these other series, you see like the Node monkeys, it's the PFP thing. As Siri gets triggered here, I have to stop that on my phone. So I'll just say Ordinal's getting a lot of flack, taking a lot of flack. Ed Wood's going to go in a new direction in the new year with my art. Excited. I have great visions of the art in my head, but the big question is, can I turn that idea into reality? Time will tell. And I like this post here because I think it illustrates a very important tension, which is, I think, a Lou Reed, actually, between thought and expression lies a lifetime, right? And so what I would say is it's great to have good ideas, and I'd actually say it's very important. It's actually crucial to have those kind of underlying conceptual girding, so to speak, or conceptual, like engineered kind of foundation. But within that, I think you have to be totally, especially in the visual arts, but just in creativity in general, because you're going in the land of execution, music as well, you have to basically, you can have your big ideas, you go in, but then as you're in that conversation with the medium, the more agile you are and the more open-minded you are, I would argue, is the better. So all to say, I guess we will see, Ed Woods. But I love the comment because to me it illustrates this tension that exists between having a great idea and execution. And everything, especially in the arts, it's all about execution. You can have wonderful ideas, but if it doesn't look the part, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like, so it's all very interesting. James Merrill, another day in the algorithmic art studio. So look at how detailed this is. It's crazy. I never get tired of these plotter works. I got to get one of these things. I can't imagine. But one thing at a time, you got to do one project at a time, so to speak. As we go into the works here, how are we doing? 37 minutes. Ghostbug, fabulous work here. Look at this beautiful work by Martin Bruce with a funny little, are those little happy faces? Kind of like, so edgy work here by Martin Bruce, defying expectations as usual, playing with different textures, kind of looks like a garden of sorts with some of these worms in the forest. A digital illustration, one of one, available for 750 Tezos. So Martin pricing this, he obviously really likes this work. Let's just take a quick look, and of course, putting out all these works here on recently, the Nikon series. And there, of course, the self-portrait, we looked at that last time. Also here, Grass Beat. Not sure when this is from. Of course, I follow Martin Bruce. I think we looked at this one, but there you see the window, untitled, looks like Microsoft Paint. So very just rad artwork from Martin Bruce. Here is No Hygiene, How to Make a Pizza.
Start with the dough, roll it out flat, spin it around like a pizza acrobat, sprinkle some flour so it won't.
Kind of sounds like AI music. And so we'll just take a quick look here. So look at that snake. So what do they call this? I was going to call not garbage core. What do they call it? Brain rot. Brain rot. And there's the pizza person. So all to say, interesting work as ever from No Hygiene, tapping a nerve of some kind in the zeitgeist. Here, How to Make a Pizza. Edition of one. How much does it sell for? 900 Tezos. So nice sale. Cam Crazy. So here are the works I was mentioning by Canik Zapata. I said to myself, what the hell is this? In the best sense. I thought, like, what the, So I don't think these are minted. I think these are just posted on X. Kind of gives you vertigo a little bit. Pretty interesting work. There are others here too. Playing with basketball. So Canik Zapata, and is that like some sort of paint box tool? Not sure. Some eyes. Not sure what's going on there. So anyways, interesting work from Canik Zapata. Here's Cyber Mystic, who of course I follow, Marcelo Pinel. This might be lower res. It's definitely lower res than the original. Not sure if this is a new one, but it looked pretty cool. Of course, this is higher res online, so go to Marcel Pinel's feed to find the original. And here is some Zozo. New Zozo work. I'm excited. Love the color. Cool. Very cool. Love the colors. Wow. Feels very museum-y. Here's Groundhog Day. This is picked up by Absurdity for 230 Tezos. You know, a lot of bargains out there right now. Tezos at 50 cents. It's pretty cool. Wow. So Zozo's getting super duper. Zozo's always been interesting, but it just keeps getting more so with time. It's feeling very museum-y in the audio. Wow. Great work. Zozo continuing to dazzle. Here's Renki, Toro. I just realized that Renki kind of fits a little bit with Zozo's shapes. So bringing in the kind of animated abstract of Renki here. So cool work here, edition of 5 for 5 Tezos, kind of classic Renki colors. Here is Nov 1914, Serenata para Chica. And so I think I know what's going on here in these works by Nov 1914, which I believe is taking some of the homages, some of the pieces from the homages, and then say like this woman here, or maybe even this person. I think they're taken from the homages and then they're recontextualized within a new, landscape, or in this case, interior. Even here, maybe reusing some flowers. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Here, so just kind of recombining. You think of Dan Control. Edition of 2 for 21 Tezos sold out. Here is Mishi Asu Sensation. So cool minimal artwork here. And kind of classic Mishi Asu colors, and a couple of figures there, and maybe a sleeping figure here, not sure. Sensation, cool title, $5.50 each. This is fabulous. This is by Walk, hilarious. Great title too. Essay, I think I'm pronouncing that right. Ecce, Essay Homo, referring, I can't remember what that means, but it basically is often the title of Jesus in paintings. Edition of 1, selling for 30 Tezos. This is an awesome one. Still a steal. At 30 Tezos, $15 for a Walk 1 of 1. Here's Kazuhiro Ehira. Interesting work, almost monochromatic, and then adding just a touch of yellow in there, a little heart seemingly. Okay, I believe all digital. Here is Requiem de la Nuez, and edition of 5, cool digital painting here. As you can see, almost three-dimensional. And so pretty cool artwork here. Just a cool painting. It looks like dragging screens. Kind of a modern, kind of figurative artwork. Very cool. How much? 3 Tezos. None sold. I think a very nice piece here. Yuri J. H. Lev. So putting out a work of 3 houses. And so interesting piece here. Kind of looks like a cabin. And again, hyper-textured, sun peaking. Here's another one, edition of 1. And what are these selling for? 480 Tezos at auction. So nice price for both artist and collector. Portrait of a house with a good investment potential. Great title. And here, so with Tezos down in price, maybe it's an opportunity to get some Yuri J artworks for pretty reasonable prices. This one went for 700 Tezos, so a little bit more. So cool work there. Here's Scamra, Cascades 3, so AI artwork here. Continues to be quite interesting from Scamra. That is full size, Cascades 3, edition of 10. And that looks sold out at 15 Tezos each. And here's some more. This, I believe, released on X. Good afternoon. So Scamra continues to be super prolific and interesting. Almost looks like one of those old Roman Maybe it is based on that. Those old kind of almost Roman paintings from the 1st century, 2nd century, almost like death mask type coffins, or like it's painted on the coffin, the image of the person. This is a little different. Interesting lines here. So getting all sorts of interesting results with stable diffusion. Here's one more. So sticking with stable diffusion, interestingly, with Scamra, and this was picked up, this beautiful landscape, for 185 Tezos. So the market continues in the bear here. Some beautiful AI artworks from Scamra. Cool title, Landscape. Here is 1,000 lands, GMs. So interesting work here. I assume this is AI, but not positive. So interesting, could hang in the same room there, and interesting work. Nice white background. Here's Yoain, also AI. What's funny is I'm not arranging these on purpose by AI. I'm kind of going more by texture and color and that sort of thing. And they're all AI, the last 3 works. So Yoain, with a really rad artwork here, cool abstract. And here is Santiago, also known as Time, and a really cool piece here. And again, I believe using AI, but a whole bunch, perhaps collage as well. All sorts of interesting things going on there. And there's Uxie, commenting on the market. And Bitcoin pointing, is that ETH? And they pointing to each other. Who is responsible for this downward trend? Uxie, of course, I follow Uxie. No, you go first. And there's upside down. Hilarious. Always kind of funny. Here is Ed Marola. We went tiger hunting, but it did not work right. And selling for 125, like the market's not doing bad. It's not like booming, but it's not doing bad. Works of art are selling. It's a pretty cool small artwork here by Ed Marola. It's a super cool frame. The market continues here. Edition of 1, again, 125 Tezos. How long did that take to sell? Just out of curiosity. Same day. Might have been pretty quick. It's Isn't that interesting? You know, small artwork. Very cool. Macrometry. This was a really cool artwork. I think Absurdity posted it. No text here. No title. Edition of 8. And pretty cool artwork. Almost looks like ASCII, but I don't think it is. Very nice. Sometimes it just turns out, and that was one of those works. Beautiful violet, kind of mauve background there. Here is Oblivion Fields. Steeding, not quite sure what is here. I believe one was sent to me. And just looking over, almost looks like a cemetery, but hard to say. Maybe that's a chair. Not sure, just cool textures here. Edition of 20, and that was sent to a whole bunch of people. Here's Renki, again, Urawa. And again, kind of would fit with a similar texture here. Kind of nice black and white work here by Renki. So keeping it interesting, edition of 3. But not listed. Here's Anatoly Zenkov with a cool looking, kind of taking a portrait in a cube and then just dismantling it digitally, kind of, sample and hold, I'd be tempted to call it. And then you have this interesting 3D GLB type work. Pretty interesting there. This was interesting as well. Jean Millet on VVV, The Guardians. So there's a whole series of these kind of weird looking works here. Okay? Cool, kind of almost and interesting selections over there. Wild. And this was also kind of funny. What's up with bricks? I assume these are called bricks. That one looks like a sponge, but maybe you saw these, where it's all these different bricks, I guess, with eyes on them, but different textures, as you see. So I believe that's on VVV. Lobi, who's this? Lobi Sig Smoker gives a full explanation here online. And here is Billy the Kid, also known as Agnes. And so Evil Dark here, and that is edition of 10 for 13 Tezos, and this was just minted before I launched the show. So cool artwork here from Agnes, evildark.gif, edition of 10. Here's Mumbleboy. Some interesting work. And what happened? Let's go back. And we'll do this. So cool digital collage here from physical and digital. Nice piece from Mumbleboy. 5 minted on Rodeo. Here's Sad Girl, who I'm really happy to see back on the scene. Beautiful textures here combined with some anime and almost like analog video. You almost see a countdown here. Just cool, interesting work. Here's Burka Byram, who we were talking about earlier, the Santea Bull Leaper. So it looks like continuing with the Minoan theme here. Let us see. Bull leaping, a major ritual of the Minoan civilization in Crete. Yeah, if you get the chance, go to Knossos, which is on the island of Crete, and that is where Minoan civilization is said to have flourished. Trained acrobats ran towards a charging bull, grasped its horns. There's a very famous image that's still painted there, that still exists, and used the animal's momentum to vault over its back. So they had this kind of almost circus act back then, something like this, and Burka Byram doing his interpretation with maybe some archaeology, I'm assuming, in the background there, but not sure. This is a fabulous work. I was almost started with this. Penance is grabbed by Jake Studios, 200 Tezos. Really cool artwork here. I think I finished the show with this one. Super interesting. I just love the composition and everything. I just think it's just a smart, well put together artwork. So nice work from Jake Studios. Interesting title. 1 of 1, 200 Tezos. Here is Ezra Eslin's screenshot. I love that title. And 666 p.m. And here is a desktop computer and maybe someone online, perhaps a cam of sorts. And so classic Ezra Eslin. And there is Ezra Eslin's desktop. So interesting, edition of 20 for 20 Tezos, and look at that. So the market the heart continues to beat for the market here. Junkadelic and Limbo collaborating. Let's see what happens here. So really nice piece here by Limbo. It looks like a whole album. Look at that piece by Limbo. I don't want to trigger the copyright, which you can on YouTube. So check it out. Very cool work here.
Hip-hop is dead.
There we go. So Junkadelic and Limbo collaborating there. Edition of 50 for 20 Tezos each. And it is starting to move. Mech.txt, of course I follow Mech. And so I wonder what Grok would say if I asked it to explain this. But what I see is kind of traditional subjects, almost similar to what I was discussing, those almost first century Roman, almost on a sarcophagus. But this would be about 200 years later, let's call it, or even later, almost reminiscent of the mosaics that you see in Italy. Interesting pun, visual pun there, with the pixel art. So cool work here from mech.txt. I like this kind of radical juxtaposition and bringing together of pixel art and this kind of, old Christian imagery. Pretty interesting. Here's Haiti Rocket on Teia. Interesting piece. And as you see, so cool abstract, new series from Haiti Rocket. That is an edition of 6, RA5, I believe. Here's a new glitch ROM, super minimal edition of 1, Super King. And has anyone bought it? And yes, for 420 Tezos. So nice sale there for Haiti Rocket on Tezos. A true legend in the digital art industry, in digital art. Here is Ariel Presti, beautiful work. This is an edition of 5 for 4 Tezos. Looks like they're all available. Very nice piece. This is on Teia. And continuing on, here's some work by Element Lee. Love this. Looks like using text work. Here is another one. Almost looks like a knight here when you look here. And I was thinking, is this Nightcore? Our friends over who love Nightcore. I wonder to myself. Here's Cap'n. Wonderful piece here from Cap'n. Rad colors, just a natural talent, Cap'n. We did the show, of course, of the Pocobelli collection. Look at those retweets. So getting some love online, El Sol. Here's Eleanor Frederick with the Oregon Trail. I think that's what that video game was called. I used to play it on the Commodore 64. Cool work here, 109, edition of 10, and looking like sold out at 10 Tezos. So artists continuing to pull in cash here in a bear market. You gotta love it. Retro Manny, Centaurus MK2, very nice pixel art piece here. So nice and tiny. I assume this is on zero bound. I still struggle to get the most recent zero bound, but this is very likely on chain. It is. So I'm sure it's on zero bound. Check out zerobound.art. And that is an edition of 1 unlisted. And here is S404. Beautiful artwork here. Binary Nights. So here it comes. Is Nightcore coming? This is a beautiful artwork. So cool work there. Here is Christmas Jitters by Ed Woods. So it's trying to a lot of people feel anxiety at Christmas. And so kind of cool, almost adding a video glitch. You see the problems I run into here. So I'm going to start actually closing some of these. Anyways, cool work from Ed Wood, 10 Tezos, available on Object. Here's DJ Kuro. Just going to close a few folders here, or tabs. Bear with me, just to help us out in our journey. Okay, we are almost there. Okay, so here is Kuro. Shoot you on sight. So again, looking like glitch ROM, almost meets video painting. Very cool. Edition of 1, that's 10 Tezos, pretty reasonable. Here's Journal of Sleep PSA. I think Journal of Sleep is wrapping up.
Hello. You've probably been expecting the latest episode of Journal of Sleep. Unfortunately, this series has come to an abrupt end due to undisclosed fatal health complications with some of our previous streamers. We wish you a pleasant evening.
Edition of 36 still available. 4 Tezos. I remember. Wonderful work here. And also, as we wrap up the show here, before the computer crashes, get rolling. Fun work. Very fun work here. Edition of 2 by Downs Films. That is on Object, Open Editions. Here is Dr. Version, Liquid Rust. I think this one was burnt, but there may be a new one. Nice piece here. Big kind of video passepartout of sorts with the abstract in the middle. And here is Elby on Taya. Very nice piece here with some big pixels and some horses in the middle. Galloping horses. That's 2 Tezos, edition of 20. Here is Little Cakes. I think experimenting. So AI video is getting super interesting. Great colors here, by the way. That kind of monochromatic, the grays with just one color works quite well. Here's Acid Boy, kind of changing it up a little bit. So interesting work there. And continuing the psychedelic theme, here's Web Girl making a splash. So cool work there with the frog. And here is GIU NFT Miami Infinite. So this is on Object. Very cool work here. And kind of reminiscent of Sign. This was on Super Chief. Cool work here. Love the elevator that opens on the palm tree. And here's Sogaki looking through that alterations or something like that. And so cool work here. These all kind of go nicely together. And here's Ex-Mortal, the Quiet Beyond. So another landscape here with flowers and this time mountains in the background. Here's one on Super Rare. We'll see if it loads up. I think we should just do this. And I think it's a still, but I don't think so. This probably just isn't playing. So we've shown a lot of Ex-Mortal here, and this sold. Yeah, you can even see it here, down here, how it's supposed to look. Beautiful piece. There it is. So nice work from Ex-Mortal. I'm going to close that before I kill the show. Ex-Mortal, slow and steady, black and white. So continuing to experiment with black and white. Very cool. Edition of 13. Here's Elby again. Cash ruins everything around me. You know, it does have a tendency to do that. The double-edged sword of cash. Here's Sogaki, another wild title, and kind of a cool, surrealist-looking, I don't know if it's an interior, but some, like an arcade, so to speak, or maybe not an arcade, but some columns, kind of classical-looking scene. Look, Bosque Gracias. with some diskette GLBs, putting out 35. So very cool series there. And here's Ganbert, Theban Ashes. So beloved AI artist here on Object. So pretty cool artwork there. Edition of 1, that's 3,000 Tezos, still available. And finally, here's Gregorio Zanardi, Swimming in Nothingness. And this is a physical. So Gregorio Zanardi continuing to just build, and this is 18 Tezos, 7 minted. It's pretty good. And that is your show, my friends. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And until next time, take care.